Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I know many of you are planning to attend the House Nuclear Caucus this evening. So am I. So we're going to keep this train on time, and this is going to be a really great conversation. So you're not going to want to miss this. We are closing out our conference this year with a panel that really focuses in on a theme that's emerged from many, if not all, of our panels this week, and that is the question of how do we attract, retain, and develop our next generation of leaders to continue our cleanup mission here. So we brought together an outstanding panel that represents the experiences and perspectives from our federal staff, industry, and our community leaders. I'm Ryan Overton. I'm the Executive Vice President for Navarro, and I'll be serving as our moderator today. And we have with us today Kristen Ellis, Acting Associate Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Regulatory and Policy Affairs for DOE's Department of Environmental Management. JJ Chavez, Council Member for the City of Carlsbad and also a member of the board for the Energy Communities Alliance. We have Sonia Johnson, Public Affairs and Stakeholder Management Director for UCOR. Dr. Dorian Newton, Site Training Deputy Program Director for Savannah River Nuclear Solutions. And Jenny Stoltz, Deputy Project Manager for the Hanford Central Plateau Cleanup Company. So we have a lot to cover today, so we're just going to start off with a series of questions, and I think that this will probably develop into more of a conversation as we go, and then at the end, hopefully leave some time for the audience to participate. So jumping right in, looking at all levels of both federal and contractor staff, how would you assess the current bench strength, and does it differ between federal and contractors? Kristen, do you want to lead off for us?
Sure, that's a great question to kind of set the table and give a context for everyone to understand where we're starting from. And I can remember at this conference last year talking about how for our workforce at the time we were floating between 1,100 and 1,200 workers, and of that, we had 15 people under the age of 30. I'm happy to report the numbers are much better a year later now, and I think you can reflect that in the demographics of even this conference and seeing some new faces and new energy within the program, and I'm really excited about that. As some context for everyone to understand that the federal workforce, which is, as I mentioned, we were at the 11 to 1,200, but we have the ceiling to go up to 1,300, assuming we can recruit and fill all of those positions. But that only represents about 10% of the workforce doing our activities. And so that means the remaining 90% is among the contractor workforce. And so that's a very real number, and that reflects real impacts of economic impact in all of our communities across the country. And so as far as where we think we are and where we're going, certainly you've heard several themes this week about there's the perennial theme of how long it takes to get federal workers hired and in place. And I'm really encouraged by all of the flexibilities of kind of some new programs that we've been able to tap into in the EM program, internships and pathways programs where we can bring people on earlier in their careers, and some direct hire authorities, and all of the above approach that has really made an impact in us bringing folks on board. And as always, excited about things like the early workforce conversation we had on Monday, where it's like we want to build a community among all of these new folks and make sure we can keep them interested. And I think there's plenty of dynamic opportunities in the EM program based on where you want to live, what you want to do. There's so many opportunities that our future is bright, and I'm looking forward to the ongoing progress that's possible through, work doesn't get done without the people, so we need the people here to execute the mission. Let me see if I hit everything. I did want to just mention one other working group that we have established between ECA and FCOG, and we met at this conference last year, and we were kind of targeting some of the top near-term issues that we thought needed to get addressed in order to facilitate future conversations and future progress in hiring. And from that list, we've been working on things like being a little more adept and forward-leaning on using social media for hiring, especially among our contracting partners. shortening the background review process time and being able to bring people on board quicker as they're getting that review process done. There was I think some confusion among our contractor community about if they were allowed to participate and go do like STEM events in schools and mentoring opportunities and working with the local communities. And so we issued some guidance to clarify that that is allowable, and that, you know, we want to make sure that that's part of the equation as contractors are thinking about how they're engaging in their communities. And then the other two items that we were really working at was we hosted our first ever job fair at the Waste Management Symposium last year, and looking forward to how that one's going to be increasing for next year's program. And then the last one that I'll just spend a couple seconds on. What we heard from our communities represented in Energy Communities Alliance is that they really didn't have a clear picture of what the needs were at their sites as far as hiring. What did the department need over the next 5-year time period, so that they could better understand how they should be thinking about it from the community perspective. So FCOG, and I do really want to thank them for their support here, was able to do a projection from all of the major contracts across the complex of what the 5-year job needs are going to be. And with that information, we were able to have a meeting in July with the Los Alamos community to talk about what those 5-year projections mean for Los Alamos. And we're now in the process of planning a similar conversation at the Savannah River CSRA region. And I understand there's interest for the Hanford communities for a conversation like that next May. So I think, you know, we are certainly moving the needle, always more progress possible, but I'll end with that for the first round, but we're excited.
Thank you, Kristen. And from the contractor perspective, Dorian, do you have anything to add?
From the contractor perspective, I'd kind of add, you can look at the reports. I think most of our workforce is less than, about 40% of our workforce is roughly less than 5 years, has less than 5 years experience. So what that means to us as far as how we have to develop our workforce is now we have to think about across our operations staff, across every organization that we have, how do we manage the fact that we don't have that bench strength or that experience that we're used to? How do we manage the fact that now that we don't have that person with 20 years that we can send that operator out to the field with so they can learn from them? So how do I manage that? How do I keep a safe environment? So I have to change the way that my dynamic that I'm training. I have to be proactive in the way that I go out into the field and make sure that I'm getting people into the workforce. And I have to think about how do I develop those pipelines at an earlier age and develop pathways that allow some of our non-traditional students, folks that are underrepresented, kind of like I believe it was Ashley talked about in the last and on the last panel. How do we go into those underrepresented communities? How do we bring those folks in who have the ability, who have the strength, who have the knowledge, but there are barriers out there that prevent them from getting there? Whatever those barriers are, how do we overcome those barriers? So we have to, I think our key word for it as a contractor, and I think for the federal workforce as well, is how do we go out and how are we intentional and actually managing that workforce and providing and making sure we can execute the mission and overcome that gap that it's not just our workforce, it's not just it's everybody's workforce. This is something that's going to be a national issue, a national concern, because we have folks that are migrating out, retiring, and I'm very glad about it. I hope to retire years down the road myself, and I hope to be able to hand over the baton to folks who are ready to be able to manage that for me. So now that's kind of my challenge. Us as contractors, that's our challenge, to figure out how we can make that happen.
Right, and that's a good point. There's two parts to it. One is how do we get folks in the door, and then how do we develop them? So Jenny, what strategies do you think could be implemented to engage and persuade people, whether they're newly entering the workforce or to change career paths to move towards this EM market?
So I think this is a great question, because I think actually it starts with conferences like this. We need to celebrate our successes throughout EM and across the DOE market. Everyone loves to come to a company who has great headlines, who's making progress, who's making a difference, especially in these communities, a lot of which are very relatively small. I'm based in the Hanford site, so showing that we are tearing down or cocooning a reactor is a big deal to the community. And I think it starts with the momentum coming out of these conferences. We need to tell our story. We need to engage across all forms of media so that we show, because some young people, they're Facebook, they are other types of media, so the newspaper doesn't work for them. We got to really expand on that. So I think we need to make it a great place where we tell our stories. So that's one. I do think, though, there's a lot of very practical things we can do to really engage into the workforce early. So I know we've talked a lot about it at this conference, but some of the programs that have worked, like co-ops to interns. So we actually at CPC-Co made a decision that we are direct hiring our summer interns, we're direct hiring our co-ops, and so we actually just did the very first summer intern that turned into a co-op that is now a full-time staff. So they literally over the 2-year cycle is now a thing. And I am hoping that that is a trend, and so it starts small and gains momentum. We have changed our average age at CPC-Co from about 57, 56 to around 45 in the last 2 years. I think that's heading in the right direction, but like Dorian said, we, with that, have to rethink our training, our mentoring, how we pair people, even something simple with pairing a responsible manager that's got a lot more experience with the younger fieldwork supervisors and vice versa. We really need to be deliberate, and you need to tailor it to each company, because I think every company has a slightly different need and needs to really think about that. And then finally, I do want to throw in, because I got asked a lot about this week, never underestimate the power of connection with your employees, everybody. So I personally invest a lot of my time outside of work with people that want mentoring. I also encourage all of us to engage in connections across all levels. I think that the power of connection really builds momentum. So I think those are a few different things that we can do, but I welcome the ideas that I've heard at this conference, and I think all of us can build on them.
Thank you. Sonia?
Okay. I'd like to add to what Jenny said about telling our story. I mean, I think that's major important. And it's important to tell the story beyond just the work we do. What we're finding is as we reach out to a lot of the younger people, they want to know about lifestyle. They want to know about the communities they're coming to. They also want to know, how are they going to make a difference? So letting them know that this is, the work that we're doing is making a difference. They're wanting to know about the environmental stewardship. They're tied to the history. We just had the Oppenheimer movie come out. That created a wave. And so as much as you can talk to them about the things that they truly care about, it helps to bring them in. Also, using your employees and other folks in the community who are community partners as ambassadors to go out and tell the story about, what you're doing and what a great place it is to work at our areas. And then I think, one thing that we have found a little bit challenging is, living in smaller communities, it's great, when you're a little bit older, but when you're younger and you're in school in Nashville, coming to Oak Ridge might be a little bit daunting. And so selling the area. What is there to do? I mean, we're the gateway to the Smoky Mountains. Hanford, you have the wineries, which we really don't want them to get too involved in that, right? But we all have something to offer. So I think it's that telling your story. And then looking at your recruitment efforts beyond just the traditional recruitment, looking at military. Folks who are leaving the military are looking for opportunities as well and could come in and fit into some of those leadership positions. And then looking at adjacent industries, engineering, other energy industries, looking there. And then, you know, we're pretty stringent on some of our requirements, certifications. If there is the opportunity to not be that way and to bring people in and then train them up, I think you know, we could gain some ground.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And speaking of small communities, and especially in rural, remote settings, I know in Carlsbad, Navarro has been collaborating with the local community colleges to help develop course curriculum that will be a pathway into our work there in Carlsbad. And so are there other initiatives that you're working on or aware of?
Got turned on. Yeah, you know, with DOE awarding that $12 million grant to the Southeastern New Mexico College, that is another pathway for our local community, our kids, next gen, that want to possibly work at the website, but not only work at the website, we also have other industries within our community. We have the oil field industry, which is one of the largest in the nation. We also have the potash mines as well. So they can work in the welding field, you know, possibly a radcon field or mechanical field. So there's 3 different options there. They have the option to possibly go out to WIP, the potash mines, or the oil field. And it also gives us the opportunity to choose. We're not possibly robbing Peter to pay Paul. We have the option to pick and choose. So the opportunity, so we're not just going back and forth with employees. You know, we're able to pull from a pool and not just going back and forth. You know, because most individuals like to hop jobs back and forth for a couple dollars here and there, and this gives us the opportunity to train them and keep them. So this is very positive for us.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
So now let's talk about what the specific actions are that are necessary to develop this next generation of leaders. Are there enough opportunities for advancement, for example? How has this new virtual environment impacted our ability to mentor emerging leaders? And are there different sorts of strategies being used with that in mind?
So Ryan, I'll go kind of into the question, but I did want to mention when we were talking about collaborations, one thing I want to take an opportunity is the FCOG had its training annual workshop. We had that training annual workshop, I think early part of this year. And out of that, we developed a workforce development training task team. So we've developed that and we've set it up. We're talking with folks out at Oak Ridge. We're talking with folks at various areas. We've broken down sub-teams to look at recruitment, threefold strategy. So recruitment, retention, and release effectively. So what do we need to do to get them here? What do we need to do while we have them here? And then what are we doing as far as knowledge transfer? So I'll be reaching out, or our teams will be reaching out with as far as looking for your points of contact at the various sites who would be your subject matter experts, so we can take the lessons learned from Carlsbad, or we can take the lessons learned from N3B in New Mexico, we can take the lessons learned from the Savannah River site, and we can spread them out across the complex, and everybody can have an opportunity to implement those strategies. So some of the strategies we've seen, at least for at the Savannah River site, is we've actively done a lot with pipeline development. We went into the high schools. We went into a lot with educational outreach. When I hop on the plane early tomorrow morning, that afternoon, I'll be at the CSRA College Night, where we'll have everyone in there in the James Brown Arena talking about exactly what we're talking about now to bring folks in. But in addition to that, we're going out and talking to the high school career counselors so that you actively can educate and let those kids know what they need to expect when they're coming to a site. And the virtual portion that you're talking about, it's hard to mentor, it's hard to train and develop folks when you actually don't have that contact with them. So now we had to figure out ways that we can implement and augment that. So virtual reality might be a great thing that we can move forward with AR and VR in the future to be able to give people kind of that real world experience when we're not able to have that connectivity. But there are a lot of different opportunities out there, a lot of avenues to go after. But I think it's going to take all of us working together to actually implement it. I think I said one last thing I want to share with you is that this is what we're looking at overall is kind of a national issue, a national strategy we're going after. But for us to fix it, it's going to take regional approaches to actually moderate that. So it's different. What we had to do in N3B or what we had to do in New Mexico is different than what we have to do at Savannah Riverside, but the principles are all the same. So hope that answers. Yeah.
So on Monday at the workshop for new and kind of up and coming, we had a lot of discussion about how to mentor up people. And I think you need to think about it in very deliberate terms and where are your gaps. So we took a hard look at ourselves about 6 months ago and realized about 60% of our first line supervisors were bargaining unit less than 5 years ago. And since then, it's been mostly COVID. So guess what? They'd had almost zero leadership training, none. So we made a decision to bring in our corporate program for first line supervisors and our corporate HR manager to train them. We put about 105 through it. I'm here to tell you, and it dealt with the soft skills. It dealt with personalities, how to deal with challenging situations, not the technical, how do you fill out a job checklist? We're talking other skills. What are personality types? One of the people that attended it came up and talked to me, and 3 years ago, he was an insulator. He's now a first line supervisor at a D4 job. He knew nothing about personalities. He said, most of the time I've been in my whites working away by myself, not having to talk to anybody all day. I like that, you know, and so now this is different, but he loves the new job. But out of that, John Eschenberg and myself personally got 21 emails out of the 105 saying that was the best training they've had, if not their whole career. No, they were shocked that the company invested the time for them to take their time out of their day on their first line to come to it. So we're actually bringing that training back and we're gonna make it more. So I think we all need to think about, one of the things that hit me is asking people, when was the last time you took some leadership or training on expanding yourself? And I'll bet you most of them say, well, let me think, it was before COVID. So it's like, well, that was 3 years ago. So, you know, by definition, it's 5 probably. I think we all need to, there are new techniques though. I mean, you know, the online learning, you know, have gotten better. There's a lot of different things you can assign people. So in terms of developing virtual, I look to that. I mean, there's some fantastic LinkedIn courses that I've taken that I learned something in just a 2-hour session. So I think you have to tailor it though to your company. There's no one right answer for any company. You really got to look at what your workforce are. And like me, I realized we had a first line supervisor gap in knowledge and training. So we focused there. Probably in a year, I'm going to take a look and say, okay, we did that part. Now we need to focus maybe on level 2 managers and we got to get them. So I think you just have to continue to evolve. It's a very competitive market, and trying different techniques. Don't just try 1 or 2. I think I talked to a colleague where I said, we're about at 5 right now where we're hitting different things. So I think the virtual one is tough. And I think Dorian had some good things on that to say. And there's certainly some more, I think that needs to have more conversation on how to reach those people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we all think back to the beginnings of our career, how much did we learn simply by being in the room? Contributing nothing, just listening to how people communicate. And so, Kristen, what kind of training and career opportunities would be most beneficial for our mid-tier careers, midterm careers, looking to move into more executive leadership roles?
Thanks for that question. And I think there's lots of different ways to think about that. So I'll just give a quick kind of two or three quick thoughts. And the first being, anyone who's been on a team with me has heard me say probably 1,000 times about the importance of learning the concept of executive communication. And even my children are subjected to this, you know. Yes, elevator speech, Mom, I know. We do that at home a lot. They want to give me 27 minutes about something. It's like, okay, think about it for 50 seconds and then come back with the 30-second elevator speech. And as a kind of a thought process and thinking about persuasion, and what are you trying to communicate, and what are you trying to get accomplished, and maybe that's in an email, and maybe that's in a 2-minute conversation you're having in the hallway, or maybe that's at a meeting that you're at. And that's not something they do a lot of formal teaching on, but that's something I always feel compelled to mention. So you now have all been subjected to my talk about communication. But I think, there's a lot of, as someone had just mentioned, learning on the job, being in the room, seeing what's happening. And I'm a huge proponent of recognizing that the soft skills are there to supplement the hard skills. And we have a lot of subject matter experts in engineering and science and hard science, and the kind of training that's involved with defending your thesis, or making your business case, or writing the report, or checking the safety boxes is very different than some of what's involved in leadership. And that's, I also related to the story about the insulator and, being by yourself all day, and how that's different than being with a team of people, and how you're working in a team environment, and how you're accomplishing team goals, and thinking about customer service, and who your external coalition is, and all of these things. That there's lots of great formal training out there. And I think from the perspective of being in the EM organization and being in a federal bureaucratic system, it's easy to kind of discount those skills, but I think they're really very important. Also, for someone who's in their career and thinking about, well, that next step, do I want to be a leader? Do I want to be a first-time supervisor? What does that look like? What do I want to think about? There's a variety of programs specifically targeted to federal government audiences that I would encourage. I'd be happy to talk to people about if they're interested in learning more about those. But I think for what's really great about the EM program, and we hear all the time about folks who come to us as their second or third or fourth career, and maybe they were doing something totally different, like working for an automobile manufacturing plant, and now they're here helping us clean up nuclear waste. And so what I think is important is that one size fits all is certainly not going to get the job done. And we try to benchmark successful programs, and I love coming to meetings like this and hearing about successful programs. And there's a lot of them out there where, our sites have a need, and so they build like a community college or an apprenticeship program, and then, the first class, 100% of them get jobs on site. And then that's great PR for building a second class and building momentum and things like that. So I think a not one size fits all approach is the best way to think about it. And I think we've got a lot of great opportunities out there for those people who want to raise their hand and maybe even just take on a developmental experience to get their toes wet on something. I do kind of feel like in the federal government, a couple generations ago, it was you have a linear path. This is what you're doing. Here is your current career. And getting a mindset change into whatever you're doing now doesn't have to be where you are 10 years from now, and it could be something completely different in 5 years. So just being open-minded about a non-linear approach to your career.
Thank you. JJ?
Taking a PowerPoint class is a lot different than actually being out in the field. So I would have to say temporary job assignments. If you want to be a first-line supervisor, ask your boss if you can be a first-line, temporary job assignment. That would give you the skill set to see if you're able to take criticism, give criticism, write a good evaluation, write a bad evaluation. Write a good JHA, job hazards analysis. You're able to work with the team, give directions, finish the job, finish the assignment, and see if you're fit for the job. That's a perfect one-on-one class as to, hey, I can do the job. I can be a first-line supervisor, or I probably want to do something different. Or, let me try it one more time. Or, that's perfect hands-on experience as to train or say, yeah, I can do another one. Let me try another one before I say yes. Or
Yeah, that's right. And see if it's a good fit in either direction.
Either direction, yeah.
Okay. What are some new incentive strategies being used to attract the new generation of leaders who could serve in leadership roles. For example, are remote and hybrid work capabilities being considered? What are some of these incentive strategies and how are they evolving?
I know remote's a possibility. I know with COVID, that was a possibility, was doing remote. You can do remote, but you got to have in-field as well. You got to have people at work as well. I know my personal experience was, I'm going to go off a little bit, but my wife is a teacher. When my wife was a teacher, in order for her to stay a teacher, they offered daycare. So guess what? We had kids. So she had to stay being a teacher. So we had daycare. So one incentive I would, suggest or offer, especially with this next generation of kids coming out, or next generation of workforce, sorry, I can't name specifically, is offer daycare. That's a very strainful position to have, with kids. I know if I still had daycare, I'd probably have a couple more kids. I don't know, my wife might say something different, but.
Oh, that's a good point, and one of the biggest barriers for individuals too. Kristen, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, it seems like we can't have any kind of discussion without talking about COVID, so we'll talk about COVID. And I don't really like categorizing people by the generations of this generation wants this and this generation wants this. And I think everyone wants meaningful work, and maybe there's a time and a place where what that looks like is a little different based on what's going on in your life. And I think COVID forced us to be flexible and forced us to learn new things and try new things and experiment with new things. And I think we're finally at the point now, if you're one of those people who tracks all the inside the Beltway government agency trade press things, there's lots of chatter now on return to the office environment and what that looks like for the different federal agencies. And you want to know something that federal employees track very closely. They know which agency has which policy about all the flexibilities for remote work and hybrid work. And so there's a lot of, and I think, there's a lot of differences in all of those agencies is going to make it real interesting in the next couple of years. But I think really one of the inherent flexibilities that the Office of Environmental Management can offer is that, there's lots of different, very interesting places to live in the United States doing our mission. And, there's a lot of very enthusiastic outdoors folks that love living in Idaho. And there's some that love the climate of South Carolina. And so there's, so many options out there. And what I think really resonates for what we're seeing now is not someone who goes to one place and stays there for the duration of their career. And I think that's a really positive selling point of our mission, that, you have options, you have ability to move around and physically, occupationally, and so I think that's something we aren't taking enough credit for, that we could be selling our program a little more forcefully on, the sky's the limit, lots of options. This is a great time to come work in our program. And I think certainly you're seeing more availability of hybrid and remote opportunities now. I don't have my crystal ball to predict where we are in 2 years or 3 years or 5 years on that. But I do like that it's been an opportunity to kind of reframe the conversation and think about new kind of innovations in how we work and how we best accomplish the mission.
Thank you. So we always talk about how big our cleanup mission is, but it also can feel kind of small when we're talking about competing for resources. So how do we limit competition, or I don't know, maybe better said, increase collaboration amongst each other so that we're not competing for the same resources? Sure.
So one of the ways that we were able to do that, actually, our leadership at Savannah Riverside, we have three major contractors there. So we have SR&S, we have SR&C, so Savannah River Nuclear Solutions, we have Savannah River Mission Completion, and the lab. So and all of us have the same need. We're all trying to get folks from the same pool. So we all need operators, we all need E&I mechanics, we all need technicians. So how do we go about and look at that so that we're not competing in that same pool? And I think we found a good way to do it. We've gotten together and we're collaboratively going after, we're collaboratively recruiting, we're collaboratively holding kind of apprenticeship programs and classes to bring those folks in. We just graduated, I think it was in the EM update, we just graduated 100 different students, and they were across 3 different contractors. So I think 51 of them were SRMC, 49 of them were SRNS, and the lab had 5 of them. And they started in January and they graduated this past August. But that was a collaboration between all 3 companies. We just had yesterday, or earlier this week, and I just saw the something come out yesterday, how we started another class at Denmark Technical College with SRMC and SRNS to do that. So we're going out there. We had several different applicants because they know that we're all looking for folks at the same time, where our standards are relatively the same. We are bringing them in and giving them an opportunity to be able to join our company, and we're not competing against each other for those for that pool. So it's great for the community. It's great for it's great for all of our stakeholders that can work that, and it's great for us. It's been very successful for us over the past year or so that we've been doing it.
Okay. So, we did something very similar with the East Tennessee apprenticeship program. And so that worked for us. But looking at it now more on a regional basis, in Tennessee, I think Ashley mentioned this earlier, the governor recently appointed a nuclear energy advisory committee. And within that committee, which Ken Reuter serves on, a part of their charge is to look at education and workforce development. And so they're looking at that across the entire state. We also have the Oak Ridge Associated Universities. It has a STEM accelerator program that's exploring some of the same things across the region and actually across the nation. And then our ETEC, East Tennessee Economic Council, recently had a nuclear opportunities workshop, and I think Tracy is here, and that was very, very successful to look at how we are dealing with workforce development across our region. So I do believe that we're moving toward what will be more collaboration to address the resource issue in our area.
So I want to add on that I think this is an area that we all in this room can do better on. So we have got to figure out ways to work together to gain these resources into the area. It is a fact that there are some very other big missions in this country that are very important. What's going on at LANL, what's going on at SRNS, these are important missions. They need resources. So we also have to step up and find additional resources in new ways and look across our individual sites, work together. So I'll give a very real example. I have an engineering person who really wants to go work on high-level waste. He thinks that'd be very exciting. So I'm putting him in contact, and I'll make that happen, because maybe the D&D work that I do is not what he wants to do. So I think we need to be get above it of the little one-offs and work together and see what new avenues we can open up through collaborative apprenticeship programs, collaborative university programs, trying to tell universities that maybe even 2 or 3 hours away, we have a big market for you, try and help us gain them. So I think we need to work together, and I think all of us in this room really need to pledge to do that, because it's not just one company that can make it happen, because I may only need 10 engineers, but myself and 3 or 4 other contractors at Hanford, if you look at the one Hanford mission, we might need 300. That's a very different story to tell a university on why they should be promoting our sites and our programs. So I think that there's been huge strides. My personal belief is there's been huge progress in this area of working together and collaboration. I just think we can do so much more. So I really, and I want to look across sites personally, and see what else we can do, because I think that there's this room and the people at this conference can definitely make even more happen if they work together.
So I just wanted to add one thing with collaboration. And I talked a lot about the companies, but the big workforce development effectively is a system of systems. It is made up of more than just I can't do it alone as the contractor. The technical school can't do it alone. So we partner with South Carolina technical schools to be able to make that happen. We partner with our economic development agencies, and as far as the SRS Crow with their work grants to enable us to be able to support that. We did the same thing in Northern New Mexico when we partnered with Northern New Mexico College and the RDC and that team out there. So it takes more than just, you're not going to be able to do it in isolation, and you have to look at every stakeholder that's at the table and able to be doing, and realize that each one of those stakeholders has a need and has a timeline that they have to fit, because I can't necessarily bring students in to Denmark Technical College on a whim if I haven't worked with them, and I can't necessarily get that funding that I need if I haven't worked with that stakeholder out there. So everything has to be planned out. It has to be orchestrated in such a way that allows each one of those stakeholders to participate and provide and collaborate and provide the best outcome for the community.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. What does Ken always say? You build your equity together.
Yeah.
Sonia,
I was going to add to that. I agree. I think it has to start as early as K through 12, right? Because you have to introduce the careers at that age, and then, partner with the schools to get folks interested. And then, like with us, we have a university consortium program where we're working with several universities, just as you're saying. So building those partnerships, but it starts super early, and then working, with your partners across the sites as well. And Jenny, glad to share anything that we are doing with you.
okay. This will be the last question, because I want to leave time for final remarks and for some audience participation. But I'd like for us to talk about the success of the DEI initiatives in recruiting and in workforce development. And are we doing enough? Can we do more?
I'll take the first stab at this. Yes, I certainly think we can do more. I think we are doing a lot, and we're seeing an increase in our diversity. But that's kind of the easy part, the recruiting, the bringing in folks. I think where we really have work to do is still in the equity and inclusion piece of it. And I know for us, we're very intentional about that piece of it. It takes having the commitment from the C-suite, and then having someone to actually push the initiatives to keep it first of mind for everyone in the company. And so we see ourselves doing that. The inclusion piece is super important, because once you recruit and you get people in, you have to develop, right? And you have to retain. And so doing that through things like mentoring programs and employee resource groups, which we've started several now, and we're seeing a return on those. And then defining and communicating the career paths, and that's something that we hear a lot of. We're here now. Where do we go? What are the opportunities? And so kind of spelling that out, that you can't commit that, if you do this, then this is going to happen. However, you could at least draw a picture, and connecting folks to mentors and sponsors who could help guide the way. So in other words, once you get folks in the door, you can't just leave it to chance. It's something that you have to be intentional about and work on a day-to-day basis.
Active involvement, yeah.
So I had the opportunity, I think Dr. Alfred, who is our CAO for Savannah Riverside. He actually allowed, had this class for a SHRM class, so Society of Human Resource Management. Came in and actually talked about equity, and a photo he showed me kind of stuck with me. And it's made me, it gave me a way to kind of articulate something that I wasn't able to articulate before. And ultimately, I think we need to look at DEI initiatives differently, especially now in the environment that we're in. There are a lot of folks that are in our underserved communities right now, and they're a resource that we need. And we're not going to be able to get to that resource unless we are able to overcome the barriers that are keeping them from getting into those entry barriers they have. So if I need that resource, I need to figure out what is it, childcare? Is it a daycare system? Do I need to go there and through K through 12 and be able to provide something to increase mathematics, something so I can get there? Because it's not ability that's lacking. It may just be some barrier that if we as employers or as contractors can move that barrier out of the way, we would see our pool increase exponentially. But as long as we leave those barriers in the way, we're that person's suffering and we're suffering. That makes sense. Yeah.
And can I add something? I think one way of addressing those barriers is through partnerships, bringing in other agencies that can help remove the barriers. And I know Ashley talked about the workshop we had in an underserved community in our area, and that was a big part of that workshop, is to bring other agencies in to talk about, hey, do you need childcare? Is that going to help you? And so we set that up, and at that workshop, we actually hired 20 people. So so it can be done.
Thank you. I'd like to just go down the line and give everyone a chance to make one final comment, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Why don't you go first, JJ?
All right, I'll go. The cooperation for Carlsbad, I know the community, the contractor, and DOE. It's through the partnerships that we're able to come up with our grant and able to get the process going, to get the resources we need to get the employees and the community involved to get the employment up, not only employment, but the training needed to get the resources in place to get the project going. Not only our project, but multiple projects, the potash and oil industry as well. So it's not only helping this site, but it's helping multiple industries as well. So
Thank you.
thanks.
I'm still thinking about that last question you gave to that side of the table. So I'd like to share just one final thought there. And I'm sure you've heard some talk about the Minority Serving Institution program that we have in place. And why I think this program is so special is that, it's an opportunity to increase the pie, which ties to the question before that. And, again, we have these historic conversations about, oh, this contractor stole from this contractor, or, NNSA hired away all of our EM people, or the national labs, everyone's just going to work for the national labs. I love the potential that exists with the MSI program, because it's pulling in so many other colleges and institutions that don't have that physical proximity to our sites. So we're tapping into a larger resource of folks, and then that again changes the conversation of competition to making enough opportunities available to a lot more parties that have not been involved with our program before, and I think that'll be a real game changer for us. And then my last thought will be, you've heard some conversation, hopefully, and if not, I'm happy to talk your ear off a little bit more about the Community Capacity Building Program, which was a new funding line we received in EM, and it's at $19 million level to address some of these topics we've been talking about, building capacity and helping our communities that are frontline communities or other communities that are impacted by our activities do exactly that, build their capacity, build their pipeline, build their STEM future, build their ability to understand better our program, to do our monitoring for us, to become more involved, to help us in partnership in closer ways that are existing right now. So I think that'll be another kind of important tool for us moving forward. And looking forward to all of the bright outcomes that we have from all of the various programs. And thanks to my other panelists for the conversation.
Thank you. Sonia?
Just glad to see that we continue to talk about this. I know that, workforce development has been on a lot of the conferences lately, and I think we have to continue to talk and share ideas because this is an issue that's facing all of us.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I just wanted to, we didn't touch on this during the conversation, so I did want to make sure that I said it. A lot of the sites are made up of various parent companies that have resources that you can reach back into to be able to, and who have historic strategies that you can look to with respect to workforce development, this, that, or the other. So I think we can do a better job as our contractors as looking back into say, hey, what are these legacy resources that we have? What are the ways that we can bring it to bear? Because we don't have to try to learn this in a vacuum. Someone's done it prior to us. So if we can reach back and pull that in and get the best practices from each of our home organizations and bring it to bear in the field, that'll help us to be a lot, that'll move us forward a lot faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Jenny?
So I'm just going to echo what all of them said. I think it's just absolutely fantastic we are having these conversations. I give kudos to the idea for Monday's session for our early career professionals. Thank you to Longenecker. I mean, great leadership to show that we need to try some new things. And I think we need to continue that through all of our major conferences that we have. We need to continue to talk. And again, I pledge that I'm going to continue to bring early career professionals with us to these conferences so they can get the momentum and see where we're going. So I think we just need to keep having them, exchanging, and just commit to keep working through this. So.
Excellent. I think I promised time for questions. I've got 20 seconds, so anybody have a fast one?
So this is my comment for the DEI. So respectfully, those of folks that look like myself, given the opportunity, and I've been given many opportunities throughout my career, but when you walk into a room and you're given a program to manage, and the people don't even recognize you for being the program manager, they don't even call me by my name. They would rather go to someone else that don't look like me, even though I'm the program manager, and they'll ask that person, so-and-so. The meeting will end, the person will come back that don't look like me, hey, I need you to tell me so. So they can then go back and they can inform the audience. So I get the opportunity to be the program manager, but I don't get the respect. And many of us that look like me, we don't get the respect to go in a room and to be the person that you hired us to be. It doesn't matter that I'm qualified. It doesn't matter how many colleges, schools, nothing matters because I look the way I look. And it doesn't matter how many of us look the way I look, that we don't get the respect. So my comment is, please give us the respect. If I look like me, recognize that I don't get to be in a room like this without the proper credentials. No one will hire someone that look like me without the proper credentials. So give us the respect that we earn when we get into these types of rooms, because we are able, we can do the job. So I'm just here on behalf of those that look like me, who would rather never say anything. I'm one of the very few people who will say something. Many of us will never say anything, and we'll just slip away and pretend that it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter. Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations on earning your role as program manager. Do we have any final questions? If not, then I think we will end on this and look forward to hopefully reporting more progress in next year's session. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And I just wanted to say thanks for everyone for coming. Once again, we had record attendance. We started with workforce and the future generations. We ended with workforce, and we're real excited about it. Those of you who are going to the cleanup caucus, it's in Rayburn Room 2539, Rayburn Room 2539. And ECA has a couple of webinars coming up on waste reprocessing, on cleanup to clean energy, and how the programs actually work, and some other things. We do these all for free, so anybody who's interested, we do this as educational pieces. Please sign up for the ECA bulletin. That's free as well, and that provides you with information on what's going on. And we have information on that in your packets, or just reach out to Faith over here. Anyway, thank you all. Appreciate it.